Good morning, dear Dharma friends. How wonderfully familiar you are. January the 21st, 2021. I'm Robert Beatty. I'm coming to you from Portland, Oregon. This is a broadcast of the Portland Insight Meditation Community. If you'd like more information about PIMC, please go to portlandinsight.org. There's a ton of information there. All the other teachers and teachings and upcoming events and many, many other really fine, useful bits of information. And my website is robertbeatty.com. And that's a very interesting place to browse around too. The home page has several very beautiful collaborations of art and meditation. So, a poem for the morning. I had it all queued up. Come on. It's a poem about mindfulness and love, the way I read it. It's Aimless Love by Billy Collins. It's a little long. I'm going to read it once. This morning, as I walked along the lakeshore, I fell in love with a wren, and later in the day with a mouse. The cat dropped under the dining room table. In the shadows of an autumn evening, I fell for a seamstress still at her machine in the tailor's window, and later for a bowl of broth still rising like smoke from a naval battle. This is the best kind of love, I thought, without recompense, without gifts or unkind words, without suspicion or silence on the telephone. The love of the chestnut, the jazz cap, and one hand on the wheel. No lust, no slam of the door, the love of the miniature orange tree, the clean white shirt, the hot evening shower, the highway that cuts across Florida. No waiting, no huffiness or rancor. Just a twinge every now and then, for the wren who had built her nest on a low branch overhanging the water, and for the dead mouse still dressed in its light brown suit. But my heart is always propped up in a field on its tripod, ready for the next arrow. After I carried the mouse by the tail to a pile of leaves in the woods, I found myself standing at the bathroom sink, gazing down affectionately at the soap. So patient, so soluble, so at home in its pale green soap dish. I could feel myself falling again as I felt its turning in my wet hands and caught the scent of lavender and stone. Isn't that? After I carried the mouse by the tail to a pile of leaves in the woods, I found myself standing at the bathroom sink, gazing down affectionately at the soap. So patient, so soluble, so at home in its pale green soap dish. I could feel myself falling again as I felt its turning in my wet hands and caught the scent of lavender and stone. It's Aimless Love by Billy Collins, and I'll put it in my blog on robertbeatty.com later this morning. Oops. Yikes. Let's see how I do this morning. My left hand's a little numb. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya. Such a familiar ritual, isn't it? A few words, remembering the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And then taking a familiar, comfortable upright posture. Meeting the day. Meeting the moment on its own terms. What is it like to be me this morning? We all have that same question in a way. What is the mood? What's the level of fatigue and awakeness? What are the sensations that the body is experiencing, manifesting? Let us come with bare attention to the reality of contact with the chair. If there's low back support, being aware of the support in the back. Awareness making intimate contact with the hands. More accurately, of course, it's the sensations in the hands co-arise with knowing them. The sensations in the face co-arise with knowing them. You might visit your eyebrows and your forehead and see if there's any tension there that you don't need, that you can just let go of. And then, of course, since we're alive, there's breathing. Each breath has its moment of beginning. It has its rising to fullness, its decline, its vanishing. So let's embrace it. Let's meet it like the soap in the soap dish. In a certain way, let's fall in love with each breath. That which we fall in love with receives a lot of attention. Somehow or another, we commit to being with our senses. So let us commit to being in deep, intimate contact with this breath now. We call what we do a meditation practice. For good reason. We are practicing something. We are practicing the 7 enlightenment factors. We're practicing having mindfulness be predominant in the consciousness stream. Concentration, curiosity, persistence. We practice tranquility and equanimity and joy. We practice uprooting the 5 hindrances. One breath at a time. Being here now. We have a term for the wandering mind that makes it seem benign. We call it daydreaming. Another name could be trances. We fall into the trance of wanting, of desiring, or of wanting not, of disliking. The trance of restlessness, agitation, worry, a kind of uproar in the mind. We fall into sleepy dullness. We are hypnotized into doubt, confusion. Different belief streams conflicting with one another. We fall into identification with many different kinds of stories, the past and the future. We have the story of victimhood. Waking up, of course, doesn't mean that things that happened in the past are not real and don't still affect us. It's the realization that they're not happening now. So setting ourselves free, one breath at a time, one moment of mindfulness at a time. One moment of concentration at a time. One way to think of the cultivation of mindfulness is that I am doing something. I am meditating. Another way to cognize it is perhaps to realize that mindfulness, awareness, the movement to awakening comes from within. And that if we stop and create the conditions, so we're not busy doing, that in us which is already awake, which has always been awake, starts to shine through. It illuminates the wandering minds and the suffering inherent in them. There are many realms where mindfulness illuminates. There's the realm of feelings, of Vedana. You might invite awareness to open and discover somewhere in your body where there is warmth or coldness, the fire element. It could be too warm, in which case there might be disliking. It could be just right, in which case there probably is neutrality. Or it could be too cold, too cool. And that could arise with the inherent disliking. And this disliking and liking, pleasant and unpleasant, drives us through life. Essential for survival as an individual and a species. But we take it to rather extreme ends. Maybe there's somewhere in the body where there is discomfort, an itch, a burning in an eye, an unpleasant ache. We can, with clarity of intention, invite awareness to open there. Normally we avoid such kinds of awareness. There's a sign in the parking lot of Wat Panana Chat in eastern Thailand, the monastery for Westerners. It's green and it has in yellow writing, first in Thai script and then in English, a quote from Ajahn Chah. If you haven't begun, if you're not practicing with Vedana, with feelings, with liking and disliking, it doesn't say all that. It says if you're not practicing with feelings, you haven't yet begun. So we might add in pleasant, unpleasant, and indeterminate, which occurs with every sense contact. And so we go beneath the level of personality. I like this, I don't like that. We make those likings and dislikings visible, knowable, conscious. It doesn't mean, of course, that we don't sometimes follow and act upon a liking. Why not? It doesn't mean we don't sometimes follow a disliking and turn on the heat or have some food, move away from discomfort. But we do learn to sit still in the middle of liking and disliking. We do learn to cultivate and abide in equanimity. and always. If we wish stability, if we wish to amplify or rev up concentration, which helps to tranquilize the mind, which reduces the power of the 5 hindrances. Come home to the breath. Let the breath become your closest friend and ally. Mindful of in-breathing and out-breathing. And on the in-breath, we might add the great love mantra. I love you, with your name at the end. Or classic loving kindness mantras. May I be happy. Maybe with that, make a small, imperceptible smile with the corner of your lips. May I be happy, really happy. May I be free from fear and from danger. May I live with ease and grace. May I be liberated. May my relationships go well. You could pick any one of these or something of your own. May my life become one great sigh of gratitude. May I remember that any moment is the moment of waking up. And then on the out-breath, you could pick a person or persons or a group or a class of people. A loved one, a friend, a relative, a colleague. A class of people who have a lot of power. People who have no power. One of our marginalized groups, individuals. So on the in-breath, may I be safe and free from danger. May all beings be safe and free from danger. So we cultivate a mind which is awake and aware, and also is suffused with loving kindness, with compassion. And please now let us bring awareness into the whole of the body, all the way from the toes to the tip of the head, including the fingers and hands, the legs and pelvis and torso, the neck and the face and the head. And bringing awareness into the face, or perhaps more accurately, allowing the sensations in the region of the universe you think of as face, and awareness to co-arise. And let it emphasize the eyes. And let the eyes prepare to open. Notice the intention in the mind. It's just a knowing. The eyes don't pop open by themselves. They are commanded to open. They are directed to open by something. And so now making the effort. Perhaps noticing the state in which one is, the mood. And then noticing how, when the conditions change, there's seeing. Seeing. And at first, when one is so present, you can notice maybe if you move your eyes from one postage stamp person to another, it's a big change. It's not a small thing. You might have liking and disliking responses. You might have affection and aversion responses. Your eyes might fall on a particular face, someone perhaps you've had interaction with, and there's a very quick response. We learned, I guess long before we were humans, to differentiate threat and safety very fast with the eyes. So we have our prejudices that we bring from the past to every interaction with people. So by becoming aware of liking and disliking, we begin to set ourselves free from bias, to recognize bias. Going to go visit page 2. Hello, page 2 people. And then there's page 3, the lurkers. How funny. Well, so friends, I don't want to do announcements today. They're the same old announcements. What's happening for you? How are you? Do you have any questions, comments, complaints? I hear a voice. Let me turn up my sound a bit.
It's Sherry.
Hello, Sherry.
My name's Sandra.
How's... Go ahead.
The remarkable feelings that came up when I was watching the inauguration yesterday. I was glued to it off and on all day. And having been born in the United States, partially grew up in the States, and then in post-war Germany, my father was Army. Then I became a naturalized citizen when I realized my Canadian husband. I moved to Canada. And then busy raising family and developing a business. And I wasn't always very apolitical
Mm-hmm.
until Trump ran for president, and then I became pretty political. But in watching the ceremonies, it just brought up such emotion. It was so powerful. Hope. Yeah. I was quite amazed. I cannot imagine that. Our border between Canada and the United States, I believe, is the longest peaceful border in the world. It looked dicey there for us up here in Canada for a while. Everyone in the world, because the United States affects the entire world so hugely. And I just wanted to share with all my American friends what a great day that was yesterday.
Thank you, Sherry. I was moved too. I didn't get to watch it live, but I in my class last night, my first 4 foundations of mindfulness, I took the plunge and spoke about how, just as in our own Dharma practice, its foundation is honesty and truthfulness and actions rooted in kindness and compassion. And we've gone through a dark time in which there's been quite a lack of those fundamental attitudes, and it's very encouraging to see them emerging again. It doesn't mean that the other energies don't exist. I think the human shadow has been well revealed in the last 4 years, and it's not going to go away. It's in all of us. But it was encouraging, and I took such delight. I really like Lady Gaga. I had such a prejudice about her for a long time, and the way the mind dismisses things. And then I saw her in I forget the movie, but A Star Is Born, I guess it was, and then I watched the documentary about her. She's a person who has quite severe chronic fatigue syndrome and a pain in her joints. And so when she's playing the piano and singing and being so alive, she's in pain. But this life comes through her. And the way she sang the Star Spangled Banner, which isn't even the anthem of my childhood. But I was so moved. And there is this dream. There is this aspiration that is the American dream. It's the Canadian dream too. Canada is just much smaller, but Canada is ethnically as complex as the United States. And it's an experiment. People have come from all over the world, all races, all religions, languages, and it's an experiment in self-government. And I'm really comforted by it, to know that the values of truth and honesty will really be in the forefront again for a while. There is, of course, the dilemma. How do we heal such a thing? And I think we have a good person at the helm. The more I see, the more I like, and Kamala Harris is quite something. And the question is, how loving can we become? And firm, and there will be consequences. And I remember Achan Semedo saying at the one retreat I ever did with him, learning to love means putting down your own end of the hatred. It doesn't mean nobody goes to jail. It doesn't mean we welcome people back into our lives that don't belong in our lives. It doesn't mean we ever, in forgiveness practice, it doesn't mean we ever see or talk to the person again. What it does mean is that we stop the agony in our own hearts of fear and hatred. That's a huge shift. So, thanks for listening to that.
Hey, Robert.
It's Tim Blood. Hello. How's Eugene this morning?
Eugene is beautiful, lovely pink in the eastern sky, and another day. Probably everybody has seen her, but anybody who didn't watch the whole inauguration, Amanda Gorman's poetry was just absolutely astounding in my view. So it's on YouTube, it's everywhere, it's kind of blown up the internet. Really, really wonderful 22-year-old poet. So check it out if you haven't seen it.
And her presence, her presentation.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the link.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, she was something. She is something.
Yeah, I noticed after I watched it a couple of times, you sort of see her kind of planting the seeds for the next rhyme, you know, and then sometimes the rhyme comes along right away, and sometimes it's a couple sentences before she ties it back into a word that she's planted. And just the rhythm of it, absolutely got to hear it. I mean, the words, I sort of had to read the words to really get the words, because when I was hearing her, I was just entranced by just the rhythm and the musicality of it. It was just really something to be savored many, many times. Really, really wonderful. Yeah.
Robert?
It's Tim.
Hi. I was also just knocked out by Amanda Gorman, and I realized that what she was doing is very much hip hop. If you're familiar with rap, that form of poetry that she was doing with the alliteration, timed alliteration and rhyme, and the double rhymes and the triple rhymes and stuff was a masterpiece of rap. She didn't have somebody. It wasn't presented that way, but that was the genre. That was hip hop done so beautifully and so sensitively, and that aspect of it. Heightened my respect for the whole proceedings and for the president and the people who put that together by a mile.
Someone sent me I forget from which platform it was, but it was from a woman, maybe my age, maybe a little younger than me, who was absolutely freaking out, praying, save us from Satan and save us from the pedophiles, and it was really touching. And now I think, who knows, it looked to me like mental illness as well, but there is such anguish in people who subscribe to particular information streams, that it points out the importance of being loving, I think. I watched it 2 or 3 times. It was a minute long, and it's like, whoa. So winners and losers, how to move beyond that how to integrate that, how to be safe with that is quite a challenge. And as I said last night or sometime, I really believe in grounding it all in practice, so that no matter what comes our way, we're constantly being mindful and observing our reactivities, because then we can choose our course moment to moment.
Hi, Robert.
Hi.
My camera's not working, so I'm just
Okay. Hi.
talking today. I was watching parts of the inauguration all day as well, and as I have done this whole time, I've switched over to Fox News just to see what's the messaging over there.
Yeah.
And it was right after there was like a vignette of this beautiful young person in, I think it was Arizona or somewhere, who was, bringing food packages to elderly people, and just the sort of celebration of those little vignettes and things that were happening. And then I move over to Fox, and it's Tucker Carlson, who I think might be close to the worst human in the world, going on and on about Hunter Biden and just completely not covering the inauguration and just stirring up shit. And I'm just struck once again by just the absolute polarity, and I struggle because I feel like I want to do something about it, and all I can kind of do is me and be love and be grounded and centered and send compassion and depth to others. But it's such a fracture, and I mean, it was last night was very like Democrat, and it was a celebration for Democrats, but I can see being somebody on the other side who would feel incredibly alienated by all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And just I'm just struck with the polarity.
Yesterday, Tempest, who I see there in one of the corners of my screen, gave us some really helpful perspective, which is let's be active in the ways that we can with disenfranchised and alienated communities, and be of service to people in our own neighborhoods, and not stay just, I don't know what to do with the big split, but wow, here's an organization I could help support, or here are actions I could take in the BIPOC world that would be really helpful. So to act on our convictions, and also cultivate love and all that wonderful, important stuff, but to not let it rest with being paralyzed in the massiveness of it, but acting. I've had a practice that I've done for several years. I think I started soon after the last administration came in. I was traveling. I travel maybe 4 times a year teaching. And going through airports, I would, particularly when the heat of the anti-Muslim energy was up, and it wasn't enough, maybe 3 times, I approached a Muslim family and started with Assalamu alaikum, which is the greeting. And they would be startled. And on a couple of occasions, I said, I'm so sorry for what our country is doing. And our president does not represent me or most other people. And we had really beautiful interactions. Now, of course, one has to be very careful with such a thing, and it could be seen as weird and condescending and so on. But the reaction that I got was very positive. Tiny little interaction, but I think our hearts will, that's one of my reasons for stay deep in your practice, because the heart will guide us how to act. What a trip. One of Biden's first things was to overturn the Muslim ban. Can you imagine? It made me sad. How many people haven't seen their children or parents in these years? Because they came from a, quote, Muslim country. And there doesn't seem to be any shortage of terrorists. Homegrown.
Robert, the dynamic that, Dave Mayer, the dynamic that really struck me was how important leadership is. The tone that Biden set and that he's just really pushing is, people respond to it. We were talking about the people's shadows coming out, and Deb's comment about Tucker Carlson. These are educated people who know what they're doing, and they're deliberately speaking to the shadow. The Tucker Carlson leaders, and I don't. It's one thing to make our own things that we can do in our life, but we've lost the ability to encourage leadership, or at least to, I don't know, I'm not maybe articulating it well, but it really does make a difference what the overall tone is, and people respond to that.
Yeah.
We so many times they take polls to figure out what the voters want, but in the end, it's leaders who set the tone, and that's where I really feel uncomfortable about where we are, because of the number of intelligent leaders who are really stoking dark forces.
And we act where we are. We act where we are. We have the parts of Indra's webs that we can reach, and we are as effective as we can where we have influence. In the bigger picture, not much to do. But we do have a lot of agency where we can reach. One more little snippet I saw yesterday was Biden swearing in two big, large TV screens full of people lower down in the administration. And one of the things he said was, if I hear that you're treating a person disrespectfully and not treating them on the same level as you, then I'm going to fire you. That was cool.
Robert, Margaret here.
Margaret.
I just wanted to say that I really shed real tears when Kamala Harris was being sworn in. The little girl in me that always wanted to see women rising to the top was so happy that I was still alive to see it finally. It happened in my lifetime. And that was the day for me.
How wonderful.
So I wanted to share that with you.
And sworn in by Sonia Mayer. Yeah, that was way cool.
Good morning, Robert and Sonda and Tempest.
Hi, Tempest.
To what Dave Mayer was talking about, I feel the sort of despair in thinking that, like, it's hard to think that there's something that you can do individually because it's so important who is seen as a leader and how they act and what tone they set. And yes, like, you individually can't decide who gets to be a leader. You may not be able to influence that, but one of the things I'm encouraging everyone to do is to pick a thing that you are super passionate about and just go all in on that thing. And if you're worried about leadership, then the thing that you go in on is making sure that everyone has the opportunity to vote. Stacey Abrams changed the entire country. And she didn't do it by herself, but she created an organization that made sure that voter disenfranchisement was a lot harder to pull off. She changed the country.
Yeah.
So if you're worried about proper leadership, if you're worried about, the tone being set, then give money and time to the organization that Stacey Abrams created. Help that organization become active in more places where more voters are disenfranchised. And then you then have the ability to affect the leaders that are voted in and set the tone. There's always something that you can do, but it always feels like there isn't. We don't feel like we have a lot of individual power in this country, but we keep being given examples, usually by Black women, of how to do that.
Huzzah. Wonderful. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Davina.
Hi. So, turning to a more personal note, I was thinking a lot about what you said about working with feelings this morning. I just want to kind of return to that for a moment. I've been having some strong mood states, and really just, it's been helpful to remember your phrase, mood colors everything. And it helps me separate a little bit and remember that mood is kind of like a gel filter on a stage, right? It casts a light. But I was wondering about the relationship between feelings and mood. And I was wondering if you could comment on that. Like, how do feelings, are they the same thing? Do feelings reflect to mood? Like, how do you think about, and could you dilate a little bit on what Ajahn Chah meant by work with feelings, or the sign in the parking lot? I was just so intrigued by that image. And I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on what it means to work with feelings and how that relates to mood.
Thank you for the question.
Answer off the air.
Okay. That was a first. It's really an important question and an important differentiation to make. We use the word feelings. It's like the word love. It means so many different things. And the word in Pali, the language of the Buddhist teachings, is Vedana. And Vedana doesn't mean feelings/emotions, moods. It means quite specifically the reaction at the sense door to stimuli. So I can actually give an example, an auditory example. Notice what happens when I do this. It's quite a benign, maybe pleasant response. That's not pleasant. And there's a pulling away. Unless the microphone, the sound, unless the way they massage the sound smooth that out. We're designed to have, get away from it, from certain things, and move toward it for certain stimuli. That's what Vedana means. That's the actual practice of mindfulness of feeling. And similar, like a way to practice with Vedana is to sit down at a meal and you have 3-4 things on your plate. And then to examine, to have cast the eye on one item. And there will be a feeling response. It will be liking, disliking, or neutral. And if there's one of your favorite foods, I always come up with this, an attractive looking green olive. Always, it kind of shines out of my plate like there's an olive, that's good. And then I get in trouble for this, but if there's a pile of white rice, it's like, okay, I'll eat that. It'll taste okay, but it's not what I'm looking for. And if there's a ripe strawberry, it's like, yum. So practicing mindfulness of feeling is noticing the liking and disliking impulses that are conditioned, and they happen in the moment of contact. Then we have, in response to those likings and dislikings, we have our whole emotional system. And then there can be the emotion, the affect, which can get all tied up in desire or dislike or pushing away the opposite of that. And then we have all the complexities of mood, and moods can be pleasant or unpleasant themselves. And so if we're practicing objectively with moods, one of the first level interventions we do is to notice, is this mood pleasant, unpleasant, or indeterminate? I like coffee. Why do I like coffee? Well, it's because that kind of tired late afternoon, though I have tea in the late afternoon, but that kind of tired, maybe I already had a nap and I still feel kind of groggy, and well, I have a drug of choice for that particular mood, which is caffeine. And so I'm altering my state quite consciously. And then I have a cartoon. I couldn't find it quickly enough to show you, but it's two people they've just left a coffee shop, and they're flying, and they're holding hands and flying, and one of them says, "Now that was good coffee." And why? Well, it's because that, caffeine can make colors brighter and it just changes everything. So I hope that's a help, Davina. The Vedana gets very complex, but where we're, again, with bare attention, where we're paying attention is right at the moment of sense contact, pleasant, unpleasant, or indeterminate. I've decided, as I'm doing my 4 Foundations class, the first class was last night, I realize I've been a little remiss in not introducing some greater breadth to our meditation objects. That was the decision to introduce Vedana this morning. So I will be touching on it more frequently. Also, I was cold this morning. My heater, I didn't have my heater on properly last night again. And so I was very aware of the Vedana of cold legs. Unpleasant. Vedana also gets, a way it gets complex. As you know, I was raised in Canada. I was raised in Montreal. I was one of those teenagers who would leave home and his mother would say, "Wear a better coat." But I was never cold. I never suffered cold. I mean, and though I had serious coats when it was 30 below and I was walking a mile and a half to school, that was cold. But anyway, I never used to be affected by cold. And now as I've gotten old, I get chilled. It's so weird. I get chilled. And so this morning, as my legs were being cold, there was a little fear. It's like this whole thing's like, oh no, I don't want to get chilled. Fascinating.
Robert?
I hear Jim Dalton.
What? I have a question about that. The blanket around your shoulders, and you know the feeling, the Vedana of unpleasant cold in your legs. Did that change your mood?
I would say it. In general, it didn't. When something is an object of observation, it doesn't have nearly the power it would have otherwise.
That's what I was thinking. That when we're unconscious of the Vedana, because, well, who knows why? There's a million ways that we get distracted. But if it's unconscious, then it can kind of brew into a bad mood.
Absolutely.
And then you snap at somebody, and it all comes back to the Vedana. If you can catch it at that early stage, then it doesn't grow into a mood.
And there was a time in my life when I discovered that I made a wrong adjustment. I like to turn the heater down at night, but I put it too far down. And there would have been a time when there would have been, well, that was stupid. Why don't you learn how to adjust this thing properly? That introjected attitude would have come in, and then that'd be really down the rat hole. But there wasn't a shred of that. It just occurred to me now that I missed a great opportunity to exercise self-hatred. What a waste. Well, we're getting late, aren't we? Oh, 8:25, goodness. So we should end soon, It would be good if I ended soon. Anybody else sitting with something, though, before we go?
Robert?
Hadley.
Could you help me map, or put the map onto the territory of my feelings? Last night, I had an utterly sublime arising after that guided meditation, and I want to speak about it, or the mapping I'm asking for is, you mentioned the 7 factors of enlightenment in our sit this morning, and I'm trying to see what it was in my experience, but it was such that everything I did after class last night was just perfect. And I saw that I could go and do anything I want, anything I chose, and it would be sublime. I went and I read a book, and then I just did a few other things, and it was like I realized I could just go to anything I chose, and it was sublime. So it was a beautiful concentrated state. and it was just, and each thing I did, I got into fully, so it was very, very pleasant, and there was a nice concentration. So, is that something that I can speak of as part of the 7 factors? Do you recognize that, or have you had that experience?
Well, what if we went through the 7 factors? So there was mindfulness present. There was curiosity present to some degree. You were really focused inwardly like that. And it was a 25-minute guided meditation. There was some persistence, some effort, some energy put into it. There was some tranquility. The mind was not jumping around, and it was really, it wasn't full of desire or aversion. It was just kind of tranquil. Similarly, equanimity. The mind wasn't pushing against anything or desperately grasping. It was satisfied to be there in the present moment. And there certainly was some concentration, because that was my focus last night, was really to emphasize concentration on mindfulness of breathing. And then there was piti, there was joy, there was delight, that quiet delight. So one could say that you had an experience in which the 7 enlightenment factors were all present, and they were pretty in balance. And that's always lovely, and that's one of the benefits and promises of meditation. You could speak of it a different way and say, well, was greed present? Not so much. Was hatred and aversion present, the 5 hindrances? No, not so much. Was restlessness, agitation, and worry present? Not so much. Was sleepy dullness present? Not so much till later in the evening, probably. And was doubt present? No, it was absent. So the 5 hindrances were suppressed or in abeyance, and the 7 enlightenment factors were nicely singing along together. That makes for lovely experiencing. Yeah. And then it goes away. But then we...
Yeah, I didn't wake up with that today. And
I know.
I'll get that back.
Right, exactly. And so there's the desire. And then there are some things you can do, like you're here this morning. Yeah.
So it's arising, and thank you.
Yeah. Well, folks, shall we sing our way home? All right. Do we have any kids? Where's our usual hideout for the kids? Oh, Kat's getting some kids. There's some grown-up kids here, too. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Hello, Anna, signing aboard. Nice to see you. Oh, there we are. All right. Is it okay if I highlight you, Kat?
Okay, I'm hiding behind the curl.
All right, spotlight. Here we go. Are you ready? You want to lead us?
Want to sing? May all beings be happy?
All right, here we go. You ready? Be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right.
Happy day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Vedana, pleasant Vedana right now.
Have a beautiful day.
Bye-bye. Have a lovely, safe, COVID-free day. It's still lurking out there.
Bye, all.
Let me.
Burning your eggs. Okay, bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Cat's daughter. Bye, Cat.
Hey, Tempest.
Yes.
Thank you, my friend.
You're welcome, my friend.
I really bow to and value your wisdom and practical, feet on the ground, good stuff. So I feel blessed that you're here and you're willing to speak up and you're, yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's a big gift you bring. It's a really big gift that I certainly know I need. And I think we as a community need. So.
Your passion is priceless, Tempest.
Thanks.
All right. Take care.
Have a great day, everyone.
Be safe.
Bye all.
Bye-bye. Goodbye, friends on Facebook and YouTube. I'm going to call tech support today and see if I can't get better sound to you folks.